What's up, everyone? My name is Jarrell Brown, but for those of you who know me from social media, you can call me Bobby Jarrell. So right now, I'm here to tell you guys about an upcoming conference being held by Black Women in Behavior Analysis Appreciation Day, or BWIBAAD for short. The conference will be on February 21st and 22nd in Orlando, Florida. You can go online to BWIBAAD, BWIBAAD.org to purchase your tickets and register for the conference. You can go online or you can go in person. And also, because I am an ambassador, we're giving you guys 40% off. You can use code Bobby Jarrell 40 off for 40% off the price of registration. So right now I am joined by Miss Gereen Francis. And I said it right? Gereen, right?
That's Gereen like tangerine. I
God,
like to say.
that makes sense now. See, that makes sense. We're gonna
Yes.
talk about the name in a second. So I'm joined by Miss Gereen Francis, and she's one of the presenters that will be presenting at the conference. So we're gonna talk a little bit about her experience in the field and what led her to the topic that she is going to be presenting on. So, Miss Gereen, first of all, thank you so much for agreeing to do this interview with me and just kind of get to know you and about what made you want to be in the field of ABA and what led you to the topic that you'll be talking about. So how are you doing?
Yes, I am doing well. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I'm excited to talk about my work and what
Mm-hmm.
led me to this particular topic about school-based
Mm-hmm.
ethics and action. I, my story in this
Mm-hmm.
field can be pretty lengthy, so I'll try
Right.
to keep it kind of short. I started
So,
in, oh, go ahead. I'm
no, I
sorry.
was about to say I do a podcast separately, so I know Kelly told you guys about my podcast. So we can do another podcast episode we can spend an hour, 2 hours talking about it because I know
Oh, nice,
it's a
nice.
lot. That probably would
Oh,
get.
yes.
All right. So tell me, like, how long have you been in the field?
I started in the field in 2009, so
Okay,
15 years going on 16.
nice,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah.
So your business is Tangerine. What is it?
Tangerine Behavioral Consulting.
And did you purposely do that as a twist on your name?
Yes, you saw what I did there.
Yes.
Honestly, I remember doing it a lot in college. I don't know if I said it in,
Mm-hmm.
my high school years, but
Mm-hmm.
my name is Gereen. It's spelled and looks like green. So I always
Mm-hmm.
have to say it's Gereen, like
Mm-hmm.
tangerine. So I've
Right.
been saying that for years now. So it just made sense to name my business Tangerine.
Nice. Nice. So what got you into the field of ABA 16 years ago?
Well, I'll just say it was divine intervention
Mm-hmm.
how I landed in applied behavior analysis. I was working as a temp at my alma mater, Georgia State University, Go
Right.
Panthers. And there just happened to be a career fair that day when I was coming into work. And someone just encouraged me to go in and talk to
Mm-hmm.
a recruiter. And that recruiter asked me, hey, you'll be working with children on the autism spectrum and they can be a little aggressive. So are you okay with kids who may pull your hair, bite you, scratch you, kick, punch, all the things? And I was
Mm-hmm.
like this big, 114 pounds, and I said, I'm okay with that. And
Uh-huh.
fast forward now and here I am.
So excuse me. So what would you say is the motivating factor for you that's kept you in the field all these years?
I would say I really do feel like this is my calling. I truly believe in the science of behavior and being a mom of a 16-year-old. As you can see, I've been in the field as long as I've been a mom.
Right.
I think I was meant to be in this field to learn how to navigate behaviors in more positive and constructive ways
Right.
as a parent. So that's why my passion really lies in parent training and educating others on how to manage in a positive way and empower them on managing those behaviors that they may be experiencing.
Right. So one of the things I always tell people is like, excuse me, y'all, I'm a little under the weather, but I'm pushing through.
Yes,
So
you are.
for me, I always say that my calling is what I'm put on earth to do for other people. And so like
Yes.
I've been in the field since 2012.
Yes.
And like I have like friends and family member, like when they first found out I was working with kids and doing ABA, they would always
Mhm.
be like, "Oh, but you don't even like kids." I'm like, I don't like them sometimes, but for some reason they're drawn to me. And it's like
Yes.
that alone is the thing that, like, for me, that's that motivating factor that keeps me pushing forward every day. It's like you have
Absolutely.
rough days when you're dealing with coworkers and your team and things like that, but it's like when you see the kids making those small little progress, then it's like
Man,
that
it's
thing
amazing.
that pushes me forward. I
It's
remember
truly amazing.
when I first started in the field, I remember we were like, I was working with a kid and we were matching just identical colors, just
Okay.
2D. And I was like, just like within the first month or so, and I'm like, why in the world are we doing this? But like the
Uh-huh.
moment he matched and did it like correctly, I was like, oh,
Yeah.
he did it. And I was like,
Yeah.
oh, it's the little small moments that just
Small
build.
wins. Absolutely. And I think that's what, at the time, my son was 6 months old when I
Mhm.
started. So, to your point, when I was working in the severe behavior department, it was interesting to see the most severe behaviors
Right.
come into our building. And we were able to, with the science, utilizing those strategies
Mhm.
and, um, was able to change that behavior and
Right.
reduce the severest of behaviors,
Right.
and that really impacted me because I'm like, oh yeah, I'm sold. Let me learn more about this ABA stuff. And I went to do the coursework because I just had
Mhm.
my bachelor's at that time, so that I could learn more, and was able to become a BCABA as a result. I was just completely sold.
Mhm.
It's just awesome experience being able to really improve the quality of life of children and their families
Right.
just using the science.
So when did you like you did I did BCABA first also.
Yeah,
I think because I did my coursework separately through FIT. So I did that while
same.
I'm working on my
Yep,
bachelor. And so when it
yep.
came time for my master's and like for BCBA, I was already
Mhm.
working in the field as a BCABA. So I feel like
Right.
that alone gave me a little more of
Kind
a
of like a leg up.
yeah, a little
Yeah.
edge. And I think that kind
Yep.
of helped me. Do you feel that it helped you leading into your BCBA?
Absolutely. I would say having doing the coursework. So I started in 2009. I think I started the coursework either that same year or
Okay.
2010. Like I wasn't
Okay.
playing. I really was wanting to learn more. And, the BCBAs around me and the staff around me were using the terminology, and really
Yes.
challenging us to learn it. So because I was exposed to the terminology so much, I'm like, I need to know what this stuff
Right.
is so I can, speak with everybody
Yeah.
and speak the lingo. So yeah, I've been, very motivated to
Mhm.
learn more about the field. And being a BCABA, I actually didn't pursue the credential until 2012. So I
Okay.
had the coursework, but where I was
Okay.
working, there was no real benefit,
Yes. Right. Right.
to sit for the exam. But once I did become a BCABA, it opened doors for me to explore other options, other employers or whatnot. So that
Right.
was awesome. And yes, I agree. When I started my actual master's program, that wasn't until 2017 that I
Okay.
took a little pause so that I can go to
Right.
'cause I did go to Georgia State ABA program again,
Mhm.
go Panthers. So I was working there and I was able to actually go to school for free. So I'm just grateful all the stars aligned for me to be
Okay.
here in front of you today.
So let me ask you this. So like you've been in the field since 2009. I've been in since 2012.
Mhm.
How do you feel about the state of ABA right now compared to where it was, say, 2009, 2010,
Mhm.
2012, that era?
Yeah, when I reflect on it, because I was so immersed in it where I was working, there was just BCBAs all around me. But when I look at the actual numbers of how many BCBAs there were in 2009 compared
Mhm.
to now, it has exploded. There's
Right,
just so many, and there's still not enough
right,
BCBAs, which is so interesting, right?
right.
But the field is, newer, of course,
Mhm.
and we're still learning and growing in this space, but I think it has developed so much, and I'm
Mhm.
just so excited to still be a part of this field and be a
Mhm.
part of the growth since
Right.
2009.
And I think like I appreciate people like you that have been in the field for a while because what
Mhm.
I've noticed is that and I would consider myself still a fairly new BCBA, even though I've been in the field for a long time.
Mhm.
I feel like a lot of people aren't, like appreciative of the science itself. So what I've noticed
Hmm.
is a lot of newer BCBAs that have been in the field, let's say less than 5 years. Their
Hmm.
experience is like solely with like the early childhood, right? And so it's like that 3 to 7 year range. So
Yeah.
kind of leading into like your topic for the conference, my
Yeah.
thing is like I've worked with individuals when I started in the field. I work with individuals who like adolescents and young adults, and so
Hmm.
that kind of helped me. That helps me when working with the younger population because I'm like, okay, I know what life for them will look like at 13,
Yeah.
14, 15 years old,
That's a
and
great
so
perspective.
and
Mhm.
I think a lot of people that are newer to the field they only know that 3 to 7
Little,
year old range.
yeah.
So when we look at like those 7 year olds that we, they come in at 3, 4 years old, and we need to prepare them for school. We need to make sure that they're school ready. How do
Yeah.
you feel that we are currently in the state of the field right now? Do you feel like we're doing a good job with preparing them for school readiness, or are there things that we can do to like better that? And then in turn, like working on like that school based ethics, is that like kind of plays a part into it also?
Yeah. So, I was not prepared for this
I
question as
told you
far
like
as
we
the
have a good
transition.
conversation.
So, um, when I think about the clients that I did support, when I started in the school setting, I
Mm-hmm.
was a general education BCBA. So I was not really supporting children on the spectrum or with developmental disabilities or served by special education. So it was just more general education students.
Okay.
When I transitioned into my more current role, that's when I was supporting more both, basically,
Okay.
general education and special education students. Now, when I reflect on even with my parent training work that I did for like 7+ years and working in the school system, there's just still a gap
Mm-hmm.
between transitioning them from, or even when they're receiving ongoing ABA therapy and going to school,
Mm-hmm.
there's just a disconnect. There's
Yes.
still very much a disconnect in my experience.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I will say. There might be some other situations that are different, but there's just some lack of generalization. Like we say, we have to
Sure.
get them ready for school, but what does that really look like? And I'm appreciative that I have had the opportunity to actually work in the school setting so I could see and learn what are the expectations in a school setting, what are the resources,
Right.
um, what is the knowledge base
Mm-hmm.
for educators around applied behavior analysis and autism. There
Yes.
is a major gap
Right.
in that. And I tried my hardest to collaborate and mesh the two without, of course, utilizing a lot of jargon or
Right.
whatnot. I also was focused primarily on behavior and not skill acquisition,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I was not heavily involved in IEP or IEP development, but I tried still to be very thoughtful about what would look, and an IEP, for those who may not know, is an individualized education plan for students with that are being served by special education. So there are some goals that weren't smart,
Right.
they weren't observable, they weren't measurable, they
Mm-hmm.
weren't time bound, or they were, but it was like annual, right?
Right.
So there
Yeah.
was just some things that I'm like, oh, I wish I could dig in and like
Yes.
help with that, and working in a clinic where I was part of the language acquisition and
Mm-hmm.
communication acquisition too, is just thinking about like, I don't see all the verbal operants, right? There's identify an object, and I have to ask them, well, when you say identify an object, are we saying we want them to tact this
Right.
object? But I wasn't using that language, right?
Yeah.
Do we want them to label it, or are we saying we are asking them to identify it out of an array? Like, what exactly are we looking for here? So even just one goal, I had so many questions, but that was
Yeah.
not my lane. So thinking about ethics and school-based ethics is like, you got to stay in your lane. You have to
Right.
stay within what your job description is and what your role states. Because if you start dipping, dabbling and dipping into other people's
Mm-hmm.
things, then now you're harming relationships and whatnot. There's
Right.
so many factors to consider.
Right.
I hope I answered your question. Let me
Yeah.
know if
Yeah.
there's
Absolutely.
anything else
Absolutely.
to expand on.
Because one of the things for me when it comes to like that that preparation for like the school setting, I had a conversation with a few of the interns at the center that I'm currently at, and they were helping with some treatment reports, and they were like trying to put in a bunch of tackling goals, receptive goals, and I'm just like, that's great, but this kid isn't willing to sit down for more than 2 minutes at a time. So it's like they're not going to be beneficial. None of this is going to be beneficial if they go to the school setting and they're not actually able to sit down and learn what it is that we need them to learn. So do you think like when it comes to like the ethics part of it, for like a teacher that works in a special education class, do you feel that like ethically they aren't, I don't want to say that they're not doing what they're supposed to do, but if they have a kid that isn't able to sit down and they have these other goals that are in the IEP that are like the receptive goals and tackling goals, but it's like that kid isn't sitting and they're not on that kid sitting. Ethically, is that like a issue where it's like we're not benefiting the kids in the long run, or am I thinking about it out the wrong way?
So it's so the ethical dilemmas that I would say for the presentation that I have is going to be more around as a BCBA within the school, supporting a teacher and seeing that those things are not in place.
Right.
It's how do you ensure that you are building that relationship, building that rapport, and being able to coach that teacher
Gotcha.
or have that conversation, that sometimes a tough conversation depending on the person is, to say like, hey, you are submitting referrals, behavior referrals for this student, for walking around the classroom, eloping, rolling around on the floor. Is there a behavior goal within the IEP that addresses this concern?
Gotcha.
Because I'm not going to recommend a full FBA or functional behavior assessment and a behavior intervention plan be done when we don't even have in the IEP a goal to say this is what we're working towards when it comes to sitting, right? So that's kind of how I have those conversations in the role that I had, was really identifying where the gaps were or what was missing, especially when it came to supporting students with behavior challenges or perceived behavior challenges,
Right.
but just seeing that the necessary supports weren't quite there yet.
Right. So I don't know if you're going to talk about it more in your presentation. And again, you guys, like, if you're watching this video, to hear the full presentation, come to the conference February 21st and 22nd. But like one of the questions I have, do you feel that like within your experience that there's more pushback when there's like a newer BCBA and like maybe a teacher that's been in the field for a while, that's like kind of set in their ways, and they're like, nope, this is how I've always done it. And a new BCBA is like, try something different.
So yes, navigating those situations is very interesting. So when I think about my experience, because I have had experience, or what I kind of tell my trainees is that you have to know the process, right? Be confident. What does the policy, the handbook, code of conduct, what do those things state when it comes to how to support behavior in this school or in this district? Once you know that, then you're able to more confidently have that conversation with a teacher that's pushing back, because then you can hold them accountable to like, well, and you want to do it respectfully. You don't want to say, well, according to the handbook, right? But you do it without having, there's ways. There's ways to do it. And I had to do that a lot of times. Well, okay, well, let me see. With the process, where we are in the process is here. And where I think where we're jumping ahead to is this particular part. So let's just slow down a little bit and just kind of reflect on where we are in the process and how I can support you to get you to where you really want to be, right? So it's really just about navigating those conversations. And I don't think, I was not necessarily explicitly taught how to have those difficult conversations. So as a newer BCBA, or even if you are just working in the schools supporting behaviors, because I had direct reports that were, behavior paraprofessionals, also work towards getting their RBT, but they
Mhm.
had to have those conversations as well
Right,
because of the structure of our particular department. So
right,
how do you identify those things, kind of read the room and see, is this a teacher that's going to be open to your feedback and your suggestions, or are you going to have to take a step back and work a little bit harder to build that rapport and that
yeah,
relationship? So this is your first time going into that classroom. I don't need you giving feedback. I just need you
right,
to be present.
right.
And I just want you to, and this was to me too, right? You're
Mhm.
just going to be present. Hey, I'm just here to observe, just kind of see what's going on. Let me know if you need help with anything. I can support you. If I see them like trying to staple something over in the, oh, do you need me to staple that? I got it
Mhm.
for you, right? Like,
I'll staple. You go over there and deal with the kids. Like
you
I
do
got
your thing. I'm gonna help you. A student over
right,
here is having an issue, or I see that, they're over there helping another student, and there's a student that's calling their name multiple times. I will go over to that student and say, hey, I know Miss So and so is busy right now, but I can help you. Is
right,
it something, I can help you with? And that took a load off of their plate. So
right,
that was me pairing with the educator, that teacher, because I know, okay, there's a child that's engaging in
right,
significant behaviors in your class and you're over it. And I know you don't want me telling you to do more things,
right,
more work, more things to put on your plate to support this child, but I'm going to have to, and we're going to
right.
have to work together. So,
And I think like for me, like what comes to mind is like just shaping it up. So it's like when coming in, like we have to shape up that teacher's new behavior that we want them to.
exactly,
But one of the
exactly.
things I will say that for me, it's like it's refreshing to know that you like someone like you is doing these types of things within the school setting because when I have my little babies that I'm working with in the center and it's like
Yes.
doing my best to prepare them for the school setting, I want to know that they're going to go into the school setting and they're going to get the education and treatment that they need to be successful in life. So it's like
Yes.
like again like going back into when I started to feel in 2012 and having like a lot of like we had like adolescents and adults that were still in the center, but because insurance is like, no, we're not going to pay for that anymore. So it's like we
Yeah.
want to know that hey, they're going to go to this school setting and they're going to
Yeah.
be taken care of the best way they can.
Yeah.
So I look forward to hearing the whole presentation.
Yay.
And I think for me it also like when I deal with my interns, like we never know what path people are going to take. And so it's like I always try to pour into people as much as I can, and hopefully that they're taking everything that they can that's good. If there's things they don't like, just throw it out the window. But I hope
Mhm.
that people take from this conversation that we're having right now, and then the
Yeah.
presentation on February 21st and 22nd, that these gems that are very important for the treatment of our kids and for their futures and for these teachers and for the future BCBAs, for the future of the field in general. So,
Absolutely. Thank you so
is there
much.
anything else that you would like to add before we wrap up?
I think that I am looking forward to this
Mhm.
presentation. I plan on talking specifically about two cases that I worked on while I was in the setting, and just walking through things that, in my experience and just in practice, what I had to consider, what I had to do, what I had
Mhm.
to document,
Yeah.
So I'm just excited to be able to just talk through my process and my thinking and aligning it to our ethics codes as well, because I don't think that happens enough. Because when you are working in a school setting, it's ethical dilemmas hitting you left and right.
Yes.
You hear me? So
Like
it's,
there's
being
times
flexible.
there have been times that I've like observed in school that I'm just like, do we not see this? like I'm like, I
Yeah.
don't know what to do right here.
And
So yeah,
our lens is very different
yeah,
from an educator's lens,
yeah.
but it's also being able to, if you're working with those folks and trying to collaborate with them, you have to remember what the goal is. So sometimes, you think about the client, like
Mhm.
the student outcome is very, very important. But for the student outcome to occur that we want to see,
Right,
we have to shape that teacher's or that adult's behavior
right,
first. So,
right,
sometimes I had to decide like the teacher is my client at this point because I'm
right,
just trying to build their capacity and their
right,
knowledge. And I know that we may not see the full outcome that we want to see for the student, but if I'm able to pour into this educator, then it'll have a bigger impact with
right.
not just with this student, but for students to come.
Yes, because it's like a lot of times, like we don't think about, like I said, like even us as BCBAs and like teachers, it's like we think that the kids' behavior is isolated, but it's like not understanding that, hey, their behavior is a response to our behavior sometimes. We
Exactly.
have to make those changes within ourselves if we want that outcome. So I think
Exactly.
like it's very important and very, very much
Yeah.
needed.
And sometimes that's a tough pill to
Yes,
swallow.
yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I pride myself on being the type of person that's like, if I mess up or if I'm not doing something right, if I need to change my behavior, let me know. And
Please
that's something that
give me
I
that
have
feedback.
to learn and grow. And I think
Yep.
like as an individual, like we can't be better if we're stuck in our ways and say, nope, I'm right. I did it the right way. This is how I want to do it. And I think that
Yeah.
if anybody's watching that, if you are that type of person, come to the
Right.
conference, learn, grow, and
Yeah.
take a step back because we
Yeah.
can't move forward if we're staying where we are. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, this was a pleasure. Thank you so
thank
much.
you. You feeling good now? You
I
relaxed?
feel good. Yes, for sure.
All right, everyone. So again, my name is Bobby Jarrell. You can go to BWIBAAD, which is BWIBAAD.org to register for the conference on February 21st and 22nd. Registration is available, is open now, and you can use code Bobby Jarrell 40 off for 40% off of the price of registration. That's virtually and in person. And Miss Gereen Francis, can you just like tell them your name
Yeah.
again? Tell them what the topic of your conversation will be.
Sure. So again, I'm Gereen, like Tangerine Francis. I am the founder of Tangerine Behavioral Consulting, and I will be talking about school-based ethics in action on February 21st. So come see me.
Nice. I hope to see you guys there. So, Miss Francis, thank you again. I appreciate you taking time out to have this conversation with me.
Of
It was
course.
definitely a pleasure, and I look forward to hearing more.
Thank you so, so much.
Thank you.